Education is not the filling of a pail, but the lighting of a fire. William Butler Yeats wrote these words over a century ago, yet they describe the exact crisis of the modern mind. We are living in the most information-rich period in the history of humanity. The entirety of human knowledge, every philosophy, every scientific discovery, every historical account, is accessible in milliseconds from a device that fits inside our pockets. By all logical measures, this should be the golden age of genius. We should be a society of polymaths, philosophers and visionaries. Yet, a quiet but pervasive paradox haunts our era. Never before has knowledge been so abundant, and never before has intellectual stagnation felt so widespread. Perhaps you know this feeling. You sit in front of a glowing screen, animated by a sincere desire to learn, to grow, to deepen your understanding of the world. You open a tab, then another. You bookmark an article, save a video for later, download a podcast. But instead of feeling enriched, you feel paralyzed. The sheer volume of available information crushes the curiosity that sent you looking for it. We have confused the availability of information with the acquisition of knowledge. And in doing so, we have forgotten that the greatest skill of the 21st century is not the ability to acquire information, but the ability to educate oneself. For generations, we have been conditioned to believe that education is an event. It is something that happens inside the walls of schools, universities, and formal institutions. We have treated education as an industrial process, a conveyor belt where you sit quietly, absorb facts, pass a test, and eventually receive a piece of paper that declares you educated. But we now live in a rapidly changing world where facts expire, industries transform overnight, and traditional curriculums struggle to keep pace with reality. In this new landscape, the most deeply educated individuals are rarely those with the most prestigious credentials. They are the ones who have mastered the art of teaching themselves. But self-education is not as simple as opening a book or watching an online lecture. The modern autodidact must first survive the most dangerous trap of the digital age, the illusion of knowledge. When we consume easily digestible content, a 5-minute explainer video, a beautifully produced documentary, we experience a rush of dopamine. We feel smarter. We feel as though we have achieved mastery over a complex subject simply because we understand its surface. In psychology, this phenomenon intersects with the Dunning-Kruger Effect, a cognitive bias where beginners, armed with a tiny fraction of knowledge, wildly overestimate their own competence, mistaking familiarity for understanding. Consuming information can create a comforting illusion of learning, all without producing any genuine transformation within the individual. You can watch hundreds of hours of historical analysis or psychological theory, yet if you are merely a passive observer, you are not learning. You are simply being entertained. True learning does not begin when we memorize a fact. True learning begins the exact moment we become painfully aware of how much we do not know. If you have ever tried to teach yourself a complex skill and given up, it is likely not because you lack intelligence. It is because you fell victim to the mechanics of your own brain. Consider cognitive load theory. This psychological framework explains that our working memory, the mental space we use to process new information in real time, has a strict, finite capacity. When you attempt to teach yourself something new by plunging into the limitless ocean of the internet, your brain is immediately flooded. There are too many voices, too many starting points, too many conflicting opinions. Having access to endless resources does not make learning easier. It often makes it infinitely more difficult. Without a teacher to guide you, you lack a framework. And without a framework, information is just noise. Imagine someone dropping 10,000 loose bricks into your backyard. You technically have the materials to build a house, but without a blueprint, an architectural understanding of load-bearing walls, and a sequence of construction, you just have a pile of heavy dirt. Many people fail at self-education because they are simply collecting bricks. They memorize isolated facts and bookmark random life hacks, but they never build a framework to organize that knowledge. They never transition from the passive collection of information to the active building of understanding. To bridge this gap, one must understand the psychology of effective learning. It requires adopting what psychologist Carol Dweck famously called a growth mindset, the deep-seated belief that your intellectual abilities are not fixed at birth, but can be expanded through effort. But belief alone is not enough. It must be paired with deliberate practice. Deliberate practice is not merely repeating a task. It is the conscious, highly focused targeting of your own weaknesses. It is inherently frustrating. When you are truly learning, it should feel a bit like walking in the dark. It is clumsy. You will make mistakes. You will feel foolish. This is the great secret of self-education. It is less about inherent talent and entirely about your willingness to remain a beginner repeatedly. People who stop learning do so because they cannot tolerate the ego-bruising discomfort of incompetence. They prefer the safety of what they already know. But mastery does not emerge from fleeting bursts of motivation. It emerges from leaning into discomfort, accepting constant correction, and maintaining a sustained, limitless curiosity. In the study of learning, there is a concept known as transfer of learning. This occurs when the knowledge or skills acquired in one discipline automatically enhance your understanding of a completely different discipline. When you look at the most creative and revolutionary thinkers throughout history, from Leonardo da Vinci to modern scientific pioneers, you notice a common thread. They rarely studied narrowly. They studied widely. They explored art, mathematics, biology, philosophy, and engineering. They understood that the universe is not divided into neat, separate subjects like a university curriculum. Everything is deeply intertwined. The patterns found in the roots of a tree can explain the distribution of blood vessels in the human body, which can in turn inspire the design of a city's transportation network. Self-education eventually reveals a beautiful truth. Intelligence is not merely the capacity to memorize a database of facts. True intelligence is pattern recognition. It is the ability to stand at a junction of seemingly unrelated ideas and see the invisible threads connecting them. To reach this level, however, requires more than just curiosity. It requires the mastery of meta-learning. Meta-learning is, quite simply, learning how you learn. It is stepping outside of yourself to observe your own mind in action. The self-educated person does not just ask, "What should I learn?" They ask, "Under what conditions does my brain absorb information best? What are my blind spots? How do I test my own assumptions?" This introspective process inevitably leads to the cultivation of intellectual humility. It is a curious phenomenon of the human condition that the loudest, most confident voices in any room are often the ones who know the least. Conversely, the most knowledgeable individuals often appear hesitant, nuanced, and less certain. This is because the self-educated person has ventured far enough into the wilderness of knowledge to see its terrifying scale. They understand that every answer spawns a dozen new questions. Self-education, therefore, is not simply a process of acquiring knowledge. It is a process of transforming your identity. When you take the responsibility of educating yourself, you stop being a passive consumer of the world and become an active participant in it. You realize that formal schooling was never meant to be the end of your education. It was merely supposed to provide the basic tools to begin it. And the truth waiting for anyone who embarks on this path: education never truly ends. Unlike the traditional institutions of our youth, the lifelong pursuit of self-education offers no graduation ceremony. There is no final exam. There is no definitive moment of arrival where you can lay down your books and declare, "I finally know enough." Knowledge is like an expanding sphere of light in a dark room. As the volume of the light grows, so too does the surface area of the darkness it touches. The more we learn, the more we become acutely aware of the vastness of what remains unknown. To some, this sounds exhausting. To the self-educated mind, it is the ultimate liberation. If you are looking for a practical takeaway, you will not find the generic advice here to simply read more books or buy more courses. You can read a book a week for the rest of your life and still remain fundamentally uneducated if you do not allow those books to change you. The art of self-education is not about becoming an expert in everything. It is a philosophical stance. It is about becoming the kind of person who can continually adapt, question, and evolve in a world that refuses to stand still. It is about refusing to let your mind calcify. As we navigate this hyper-connected, relentlessly noisy era, we must come to a sobering realization. Knowledge is no longer the ultimate advantage in the modern world. Information is abundant. Answers are abundant. They are cheap, commodified, and everywhere. But what is exceedingly rare is the ability to take raw information and forge it into understanding.